We were turning left to get onto 240, and it was dusk, and so she didn't see the car, and then they didn't see us, and so he didn't put his brakes on or anything, and hit someone told Jeff he was going like 60 or 65, and hit the passenger side, which is where I was. The paramedics said that the passenger side was so crushed in that it didn't look like, they saw Julie when they got there, and that they didn't think anyone else was in the car because it was so ruined.
I was on my way home, and I was trying to call Julie on her cell phone because I was running late and they were running late, and so when she called me on her cell phone and was just hysterical, and Suzanne, we'd been in a wreck, and and so I decided to meet them at the Met. The first person that I saw at the Med was the chaplain, so you kind of think, maybe this isn't going to turn out very well. And then I think I ran into a nurse, and she said, did they tell you how sick she is? And they were really scared, you could tell, and so I knew it was really serious. And so I didn't hear anything for a long time, but then they, when they did tell me, they said she's, trauma ICU, and it's going to be a while. I don't know if it was a state of shock or just a state of grace that I had a peace that it was all just going to be okay, even if she didn't live. Or I expected that maybe 50% would be great, so I knew that she was going to be bad off, and they thought she'd probably be paralyzed. The police officer said they must have broken a lot of bones just getting her out of the car so fast, because she was basically dead on the scene, and they had to aggressively resuscitate her, and her lungs were collapsed, and she wasn't breathing, and so they said we had to, cut her out of the car. And one foot was behind her head, one foot was through the floor, and so they said we probably had to break a lot of bones just to get her out. So they had the neck brace on her. They hadn't had a chance to X-ray her for many days, and so we figured, well, she's probably not going to be able to move, like paralyzed. And so yeah, you think, how are we going to handle all this? It was pretty traumatic.
They took my gallbladder and my spleen, and my lungs had collapsed, and I had 4 brain injuries. It's all by what I hear.
Her sacrum was broken, and the brain injuries, she had a lot of swelling in the brain. The brain pressure was so high, her ears were bleeding, so you knew there was a lot of bleeding in the brain. She had a level 5 liver laceration, and I've heard that only 10% of the people live with just that injury alone. And so that compounded with everything else. She wasn't clotting, and her bladder was ruptured. All these different things all together, it was just a mess. It wasn't at all what I expected. The nurses it was as if they were Suzanne's sister. They cared so much, you could just tell that they hadn't detached emotionally. They cared about each person, and the doctors were willing to explain things to you and tell you, I don't know, this is what's going on. We're hoping that this and this and this will happen, and I would take notes and try to understand what they were talking about, but they just cared a lot about each person that was there, and that's what surprised me the most.
The wreck was December 20th of 2002. January 17th, 16th or 17th is when we went to Atlanta, and that's when I remember. Not remembering all the pain that Jeff talks about that I was going through, I wouldn't want to feel, because when I woke up, I thought we had just talked yesterday. I was in a wheelchair for the first 3 weeks, and then I went to a crutch, and then to a cane. So by the beginning of April, I was off of all assistance of walking, so I was able to walk on my own. Jeff has kept up with all the people and the names, and he would know people as he would go in, and so he was the one who let me know how much the med had to do with my healing and getting better, and so we would go back and thank them. We really need the med. In my situation, I was so serious that had I been taken to another hospital, I wouldn't have survived. With my injuries and the things that I needed right away, I needed the med. And there's no level 1 trauma center within hundreds of miles. So there's bad things that happen all the time that cause people to be in a serious condition that a normal hospital won't be able to take care of. And so the med is there for that. And so we need the med.
Wow, we do need